All right, so get ready to dive into some fascinating and, let's be honest, slightly unnerving stuff. The fourth turning.
Yeah.
We're going deep on Neil Howe,
Okay.
a historian and generational expert Time magazine called
Wow.
America's Best Historical Observer.
Wow.
No small praise.
No kitty.
You've sent over these excerpts from his recent interview, and it's no wonder you're hooked.
Yeah.
Howe's best known for his 1997 book, The Fourth Turning.
Right.
In it, he lays out this theory of recurring historical cycles.
Okay.
And hold on to your hats.
Right.
Because he believes we're right smack in the middle of a tumultuous fourth turning right now.
And what's wild is that Howe isn't some fringe voice.
All right.
He's deeply respected.
Yeah.
His work's been studied by everyone from the CIA to major corporations, even consulted for 3 presidential administrations.
Really?
When Howe talks, people listen up, and for good reason.
Yeah, so let's unpack this whole fourth turning thing.
All right.
Howe breaks history down into these cycles, almost like seasons.
Right.
First turnings are like spring,
Okay.
new beginnings, a bit of innocence, optimism abounds.
Yeah.
And then comes
Yeah.
second turnings, those summery times of growth and abundance where just maybe a little too much confidence starts brewing.
And you know what follows too much confidence?
What's that?
A reality check.
Oh.
That's where third turnings come in autumn, as you will.
Okay.
Things start to fray. Institutions are questioned. Individualism surges, and those cracked in the system,
Yeah.
they become impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
Think late 1960s, early 70s in the U.S.
Which brings us, like it or not, to our present-day winter, the fourth turning.
Right.
These are the times of crisis and upheaval.
Yeah.
How he describes it as an era when institutions crumble, pessimism reigns, and it feels like everything's falling apart around us.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Howe wrote this book back in 97, before 9/11, before the 2008 recession, heck, before Y2K even.
Wow.
Yet it's he pinpointed the exact mood of anxiety and uncertainty we're living through right now.
And it's crucial to remember that this very sense of crisis,
Right.
while unnerving,
Yeah.
holds a unique power.
Okay.
Fourth turnings are periods of immense change. Absolutely. But they're also potent opportunities for renewal.
It's like the saying, the darkest hour is just before the dawn, right?
Exactly.
I like that.
Think about the GI generation facing down fascism in World War II.
Right.
They came of age during a fourth turning, and those experiences forged in them an incredible sense of shared purpose.
Wow.
They didn't shy away from the monumental task of rebuilding. They rolled up their sleeves and reshaped the world as we know it.
Yeah.
And there are signs that today's younger generations are tapping into that same energy.
And speaking of today's generations, Howe points out this massive difference in how millennials and Gen Xers are approaching this fourth turning.
Oh, really?
It's like they're looking at the same storm, but from completely different ships, you know?
It's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
You've got millennials who are all about collaboration and community.
Yeah.
They're looking at these struggling institutions, these systems in crisis, and saying, we need to fix this together.
Which is so different from the generation that came right before them, right?
Exactly. Gen X, as Howe describes them, were the latchkey kids,
Right.
raised with the more individualistic, every man for himself ethos.
Interesting.
This is the generation told, it's up to you, a phrase that, interestingly enough, first gained popularity in the 1920s.
Oh,
Another fourth turning era.
wow. That's such an interesting historical echo.
Yeah.
So we've got these two generations shaped by very different experiences facing the same turbulent seas.
Yeah.
What does that mean for how this fourth turning plays out?
It's a question with no easy answers, but history offers us some clues. Remember, fourth turnings are characterized by their unpredictability.
Right.
They can breed chaos and destruction, but also spark incredible progress. Think about the seismic shift that emerged from the Great Depression and World War II. The New Deal, the Civil Rights Movement, these were eras of immense change, fueled by a collective yearning for a better future.
It's like this pressure cooker of societal upheaval, forcing everyone to confront the big questions, right? Who are we? What do we stand for? Where do we go from here?
Precisely. And while no one can say for sure what the outcome of this fourth turning will be, understanding these historical cycles can help us navigate the choppy waters ahead.
Okay.
Which brings us to your next question, I'm sure.
Okay.
What can we do about it? How do we approach
Okay.
this moment not from a place of fear, but from a place of agency?
Well, that's where Howe's advice in this interview gets really interesting. He doesn't just describe the storm, he offers some practical tips for weathering it. First up, diversify your investments and think beyond the usual suspects. He specifically suggests looking towards Southeast Asia and the Philippines.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the reasoning there is fascinating. Howe argues that as some nations retreat inward, focusing on rebuilding their own infrastructure, countries like those in Southeast Asia with their young populations and burgeoning middle class have incredible potential for growth.
It's like looking for the places where spring is already arriving, even as other parts of the world are still hunkered down in winter, right?
Exactly. It's about anticipating the shifts in global power dynamics that often accompany fourth turnings. Howe also suggests considering sectors like commodities, manufacturing, and even defense, as these areas tend to benefit from a renewed focus on physical infrastructure and national security.
So we're talking about a strategic shift from the digital-first mindset that's defined recent decades to something more tangible, more grounded in the physical world. It's a pretty big shift. But it's not all about economics and geopolitics, right? Howie also emphasizes the importance of strong social connections during times of uncertainty.
Absolutely. He talks about strengthening family bonds as a form of social security for uncertain times.
And by social security, he's not just talking about government programs, right? He's talking about building a network of support, a sense of community that can provide resilience when traditional institutions are faltering.
Precisely. It's that old adage, it takes a village, but imbued with renewed urgency in a fourth turning. He's suggesting we invest in our closest relationships as a buffer against the storms ahead.
Which makes a lot of sense. When ground feels shaky, it's natural to reach out for connection, for support from people who understand what we're going through. And that connects to Howe's final piece of advice, which is all about bridging divides and finding common ground, especially within our own fields and industries. It's interesting, right, in this hyper-connected world where it feels like everyone's shouting past each other online. Howe is calling for a return to something more grounded, more human.
It's about recognizing that the challenges of a fourth turning are too complex, too deeply rooted to be solved from within our own echo chambers. It's about engaging in those difficult conversations, building bridges, and finding common ground, even with those we might disagree with.
Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, right?
Precisely. Collaboration isn't just a trendy buzzword. It's a necessity for navigating turbulent times. It's about pooling our collective wisdom and experience to find creative solutions to unprecedented challenges.
Which brings us to what might be the most unsettling question of all, and something you specifically highlighted from the source material, the specter of war that hangs over Howe's work. He's careful not to make any direct predictions, but he does make this chilling observation.
Yeah, he points out that every fourth turning in American history has, without exception, coincided with a major war. And while he acknowledges that governments are more interconnected now, diplomacy more nuanced, he's not ruling out the possibility of large-scale conflict.
Sobering stuff. So here's the question. Howe leaves us wrestling with, and it's a big one. Is a major war inevitable in the coming years? Or can we, as he suggests, chart a different course? Can we use this fourth turning not as a prelude to destruction, but as a crucible for positive change?
And if so, what would that look like? What kind of courageous conversations, what kind of bold collective action would it take to navigate this moment in history and emerge on the other side stronger, more connected, more committed to building a future worthy of our highest aspirations?
It's the challenge and the opportunity before us. It's a lot to ponder, but if anyone can handle a little historical deep thinking, it's you, dear listener. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay connected.